Hello, my name is Jason Gom. This is week 7 for the for FTT 211, a 1911 Advanced Armors course. I'm on the week 7 assignment. Today's date is the 14th of May 2023. That's all. Happy Mother's Day to any mothers out there watching. And this week we're gonna go over quite a bit with the trigger. Did a little bit last week. I think I went overboard or did a little too far on the trigger last week, but we're going to continue that on. But this week I'm going to reflect on a few things about when trigger work would be necessary on the 1911, what would constitute a bad trigger job on this. We're going to take this thing apart, and I'm just going to show you guys and look at the fitment of this trigger inside of this 1911. I'm going to discuss what components that can, and dimensions and stuff that could alter to improve the trigger safety and feel, and then I'll identify aftermarket tools that you could use and jigs on this to make this easier. Then I'm going to deburr the trigger track, so I'm going to keep working on that and smooth the sides of it. I'm going to put it back together and do a functions check, and then the last part I'm going to talk about what modifications I have planned for this. Alright, so when you got a 1911 and you're trying to figure out what trigger work, if you need trigger work on this, I'm going to show you that this is empty. Also, I need to show my area. There is no ammunition around here. Alright, the 1911 is also empty, so there's nothing in the chamber. Alright, so as you want to do a thing, it's called over travel, and then you've got pre-travel. So pre-travel is how much you have to pull the trigger to make it break or fire, or the trigger to break like that. So if you have too much on that, you're going to have to do some trigger work. That goes into the second question as well. And then you have over travel, and then when you fire, it's how much further the trigger goes back after the break. All right, so if you've noticed any of that, you're going to need to do some trigger work on it. You don't want too much of each. You want just enough. And that's just dependent on the shooter and how much they need, depending on how heavy they want the trigger or how light they want the trigger. Some things that constitute, bad trigger work or improper trigger work is, you've got too much play on the trigger, or the trigger just won't go back. It won't fire. If you've got adjustable ones, that's a whole different monster in itself, and how to figure that out as well. If you've adjusted it wrong and it won't fire, or like I said, too much play, or too much play or not enough play on it to make it fire, that's improper trigger work. And honestly, working on this, the trigger, you just got to take your time. You've got to take your time, make a small adjustment, put it back together, and test it out each time just to get to where you need to be, so you don't do too much or do too little. That would be ways to avoid improper trigger work. Next, I'm going to disassemble this. I'll be right back. When it comes to analyzing the fitment of the trigger, this is a trigger right here. Well, there's only one way it could go in. It can't go in the large area down at the bottom. As you can see, there's two different sides. Smaller, larger. Only one way it can go in. So what you want to do is you want to get in here and you just kind of want to feel for it. Push it back at 4. Feel if there's any catching or rubbing too much. You want to feel if the track's doing well. So on the track. So when it comes to making your issues, you can polish the trigger track, and you can polish the arms on it on the side. All right. When it comes to different angles, you want to look at the track. You want to make sure it's good. You want to deburr it. You want to make sure it's not rubbing too much on the sides. All right. You also want to look at the sear and all the stuff like that as well with it inside there, just to make sure there's enough tension. Nothing's catching. Nothing's dragging. Nothing's going to cause issues later as you fire this weapon repeatedly. If you do, then you got to make some adjustments to that, like last week where we polish the sear on it and polish the disconnector and stuff like that to make everything run smoother. You can polish the sear spring and stuff like that. You look inside just to see what you need to do and where to polish on this. So when it comes time to make your alterations, you know exactly what to do. All right. Some of the things you could tool, they got a trigger bow die where the trigger bow, they sit inside of this, and then what you do is you just press it down just enough to straighten the arms out on the trigger bow and back here as well. So when you're in there, when you've got it all together, you want that good pressure, that good fitment with the disconnector on the trigger bow right here, so you get those good consistent pulls when you're firing the weapon. Alright, so I'm going to continue my work on the trigger track and the trigger itself, and then I'll be back in a few minutes. Alright, I'm back. Disassembled, assembled, did my function, did what I needed to do to get it back together. Now we're going to go into a dry and a dummy functions check. So what we're going to do is going to chunk it. As you can see, it's empty. Ain't nothing in that bad boy. Alright, I'm going to put the safety on. Pull the trigger. Trigger don't work, doesn't fire. Just pulling the trigger. I'm going to do I'm going to take the safety off, thumb safety off. Press the grip safety. Pull the trigger. Still don't work. Put both of them together. Boom. Alright. Good to go on the dry one. And now I'm going to do some snap caps. Snap caps. Alright. And load it. Drag it. Fire. Trigger, boom. Second one, third one. I'm gonna hold that trigger and you're gonna listen for that reset. There it is. Boom. Empty. Drop the magazine well. Alright. So all in all, I think it was a good the trigger work. Improved things, smoothened it up a little bit. All the work I've done so far has made it quite a bit better than from it being stock. It looks a little bit better with the polished chrome, the darkened polished chrome. I like that look instead of like the bright and shiny. And then let's talk about the alterations I plan on doing to this. So for one, after consulting my buddy in North Carolina in Fayetteville, the Rock arms. He's talked to me quite a bit about stuff. I'm going to replace the sear on this with a Nighthawk sear, just a little bit better quality. And also add a 15-pound spring to it as well, just to help with that sear and the recovery on when shooting. I'm going to bobtail this. I got a buddy that has the jig for that, so I'm going to end up bobtailing this. I'm going to throw some night sights on it just for gigs. I think all my pistols should all be equipped with night sights just in case you want to shoot at night or have to use them in self-defense. And I think that's really just about it. I might add a titanium firing pin to this as well, just the beef up that added oomph to it compared to the one that's in the Rock Island. Other than that, that is the end of my assignment for this week. Like I said, my name is Jason Gum. This is week 7 assignment, FTT 211, the Advanced Armorers course. My instructor is Mr. Minato. Today is Mother's Day, May 14th, 2023. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you next week for my final class.